Computer. So good morning, everybody. Boker Tov. Today we're going to do two things. One, we're going to talk a little bit about the Torah portion, Tetzavah, very powerful Torah portion, as you'll see why. And then I wanted to also share again a little insight on the month of Adar, the leap year, and the passage we say, Misha nichnas Adar marbe mesimcha. When the month of Adar comes, and this year we have a double Adar, it's a leap year, we increase in joy. Now notice it doesn't say go find joy. It says increase in joy, which what does that mean?
That you're joyful to begin with?
Very good. The Alter Rebbe has a Hasidic discourse based on Kabbalah that says that you're born joyous, you're born happy. The default state of mankind is happiness, which is so interesting.
Yeah, because the Christians say you're born with, what's it called? Sin, original sin.
Original sin. Okay.
Yeah.
So the fact, the Kabbalah teaches us that every man, woman, every person, every human being, every creature, every living thing every animal is born in a state of happiness is something spectacular, because we tend to look at happiness as a destination. When will I be happy? When I find a shidduch, a match for my daughter, and then I really will be happy. I can tell you honestly. When will I be happy? When I have wealth. When I have wealth, I'll be able to pay off my debt. I'll be able to pay my bills every month, and then I'll tell you I'm really going to be happy. When else will I be happy? If only my child would give me a little Yiddish nachas. If only I'd hear good news from the principal, then I would be happy. If this, then I'll be happy. So we always look at happiness as a destination, and we fail to realize that happiness is our original state, that happiness is not a destination. Happiness is within us as we travel towards our destinations. And that if you can attain a level of happiness in your life, whenever you go through challenges and darkness and pain and sorrow, which we all have, and even horrific times, you can still keep a state of happiness, which doesn't mean you're walking around laughing because life is miserable at this point, or God forbid somebody's ill at this point. But it means that inside there's an initial state of happiness. So though you're feeling pain, though you're feeling trauma, though you're feeling hurt, either physical or mental, you can pull into that deep recess of happiness, and it helps you get through it. As you know, Viktor Frankl wrote the book, God's Search for Meaning, which is a phenomenal book. If you haven't read it, get it. It's amazing. Man's Search for Meaning. Sorry, not God's Search, Man's Search for Meaning. And he writes, the door to happiness opens outward, which means happiness comes from within. You're not looking for happiness somewhere. Over there, I'm going to find happiness. If only I move out of my 2-bedroom apartment with my 11 children into a nice house, then I'll be happy. So happiness, the doors open outward. So how do you, in a nutshell, because I don't want the whole class to only be this, how do you attain happiness? Or rather, how do you resort back to your original state of happiness? Is happiness comes from the divine flow. That's why babies are always happy. A baby's screaming at the top of its lungs. You say, oh, the baby's so unhappy. No, you pick up the baby, the tears disappear, it's gurgling, it's giggling, it's laughing, because its initial state of every human being is joy. Animals, they did a study. Animals are always happy. You know why? They don't have free will, and they don't have intellect. So they always remain in a state of happiness. But human beings, what happens to us? We're born happy. So what happened? What happened?
We overthink.
Exactly, Margaret. We overthink. We have free will. So we choose different paths. And we're unhappy. And we're feeling miserable. And we go like, I got to go pursue happiness. but you can't pursue happiness. It's actually a passive state of being where you go back and you take a deep breath and you go, I'm running. What I need to do is to connect to the divine energy. Because we begin overthinking our lives and saying, I think this is what I need. And the ego takes over. You create a barrier between yourself and God, divine energy, and you cut yourself off from the energy. Therefore, you become unhappy because you've disconnected yourself from the source of happiness, from your inner self. So this is not something, by the way, that, oh yeah, I'm going to now do meditation. I'm going to sit on my yoga mat. And now I'm going to be a happy person because, I just learned in the class, all I have to do is reconnect to the divine energy. It is a lifelong struggle and journey. It has to constantly, you have to think about yourself in what's happening to you. So whenever time something challenging comes your way and you're feeling so unhappy, as we all sometimes say, I'm so unhappy. It's not what I thought my life would be. I didn't think my shlichus, my journey in life would take me here. This is not what I wanted in my relationships in my 50s. This is not what I expected from my family, from my spouse, from my friends, from my career. Whenever we think we're not where we're supposed to be, and the ego takes over when God put you exactly where you have to be, you feel unhappy. So it's a constant struggle and a constant mindset and a constant, the Alter Rebbe writes, avoda, which means lifelong work to keep yourself on track, on the trajectory of where you're meant to be. But in other words, by saying, look, if I'm here, it's because God put me here. Remember, I wasn't sold, I was sent. That's now my new thing. Since I learned that Torah portion, I say to myself all the time, I wasn't sold, I was sent. Joseph says to his brothers, you think you sold me? No, I was sent here by God. No, you don't really control your life in a sense. God puts you where you're meant to be. You constantly have to put yourself in that mindset. Was I sent? Was I sold? And that keeps you connected to God, realizing every minute that maybe I'm supposed to be here. Maybe I had to have this struggle. I don't know why. I don't think I deserve it. But there must be something going on in my life. And kind of knowing that there's a divine plan makes you a little bit feel better and happier. Because you say to yourself, it's not my fault. I was supposed to be here. It's not because I didn't think it through. It's not because I didn't plan, because I did all that. So how come I'm still here? Because you were meant to be there. So constantly we have to tell ourselves and look at the big picture. And that brings happiness. Because remember the story, a guy comes to the Baal Shem Tov, he says, how do I find happiness? How do I find contentment? He says, go to Reb Zusha Nanapal. He's going to show you. He goes there, and he's not sure he came to the right place. The house is a ramshackle hut, barely has a roof. He walks inside, poverty, you can't even describe poverty. And he says, Zusha says, why are you here? He says, the Baal Shem Tov sent me. He says, well, for what? He says, he sent me here to see how to find the good in everything. Even in times of like poverty and crisis, he says, why are you coming to me? Bamir is alles good. Here, everything is perfect. He sent me to me. I can't imagine why I would be an example of that, where you look at something and you go, wow. He never even looked at his life like he's poverty stricken, his roof has a leak. He saw himself in a whole different light. He saw himself as a very happy, content man leading the life of a pious Jew, studying Torah, trying to eke out a living. He looked at himself as a very happy person. So the man understood. It's not because he had a gorgeous house. It's his whole attitude engendered that feeling. That's why the Baal Shem Tov sent him there, to show him it's not about what you really have, it's how you perceive what you have. Which doesn't mean you shouldn't strive to have a beautiful home, ladies. Let's not push this. I'm not really willing to live in a ramshackle house. But it's giving you an attitude of life, an attitude of life. And just one more tidbit before we close this topic is they did a study on people who went through very terrible things like very serious disease, tragedy in their lives. And they had two groups, those that bounced back after the terrible tragedy, the terrible illness, and those that didn't. And what they discovered is not earth-shattering, but they discovered that the people who bounced back were always in a good state of mind. They were happy people, but they unfortunately and horrifically encountered this terrible illness tragedy. And the other people, even when life was good before the tragedy, before the illness, they were not happy people. They were not content people. They were downtrodden, depressed. So what again tell you that yes, circumstances sometimes come that are awful, and we're not going to deny it. But if a person is in a stronger state of mind when they encounter the challenge, they're much more have the ability to overcome and deal with it. You know, I met a woman at a Hadassah event. She was very, very depressed. You could see it. Her energy spoke of misery. And you don't want to talk to her because, you know, who wants to talk to... And then I asked somebody later, what happened? She said her child was killed in a terrible car crash. I said, when? They said, years ago. But she never bounced back. And again, we're not judging that she never bounced back. We're judging the fact that till this very day, she hasn't dealt. And it was probably before she also might have been in a very not good state before this terrible tragedy. But I thought it happened then because it was so painful, and you could feel the pain that, you could feel the pain. So again, it's again, never judging, God forbid, never do you judge a person that's in pain, but knowing that God gave us a tool. He created us in a state of happiness. So we could always resort back to that. We can always tap into that. You could say, maybe I wasn't born happy. As one friend always likes to tell me, I was born this way. What's your problem, Freida? So just something I saw in this beautiful discourse from the Alter Rebbe, and I wanted to share it with you because I never knew this, that we were born in a state of happiness. I thought that happiness is a destination. You want to be happy, go find happiness. So when I read this discourse, I'm like, wow, this is a very, very powerful insight. Very powerful insight. You know, because again, if you're not born this way, what do you want from me? I was born this way. Does anybody want to share anything about that? Should I ask a question? If you're happy, raise your hand. If you're happy and
clap your hand.
So more to be discussed. So I want to share two very beautiful, beautiful insights from the Torah portion. And the Torah portion is called, anybody know? Tetzavah. We're moving along in the second book of the Torah, Exodus, Shemot, and it's called Tetzavah. Anybody know what the word Tetzavah means? And I'll read the opening passage. Va'ata Tetzavah as Bnei Yisrael, and you shall command the children of Israel. And God starts to tell, and I'm going to say who, what to command the children of Israel. And we know they're now in the process of building the tabernacle, the Mishkan that we discussed in great length last week, the power of the tabernacle. And it starts off with how to prepare the oil for the menorah and so on. But let me ask you a question. I'm going to read the passage. Tell me, like in school, the teachers would give us a test on Chumash, on Bible. This was the set. They would give a passage from the Torah portion or the Bible we were studying, and you had to say who said it to who, va'al ma, and about what.
Wow.
Okay, so you had to do a lot of studying because it wasn't on one passage, it was on a whole book. Okay, I'm reading the passage. Tell me, mi amar el mi. Let's go back to yeshiva high school. Who said it to whom? Va'ata Tetzavah, and thou shalt command as Bnei Yisrael, the children of Israel. Who said it to whom?
God
Said it to Moses.
Moses.
Very good. God says it to Moses. Excellent. This class, you passed the test. Okay.
No.
God says it to Moses. Now it could have said, Vayoma Hashem al Moshe. God said to Moshe, as in previous Torah portions, tell the children of Israel they should take the oil, and this is how you make the oil for the menorah from the first drops of this olive, and so on. Ata Tetzavah, you shall command. God is calling Moshe, you. And Rashi jumps in and asks, why is God saying you? And the answer is that, remember, let's go back in time. Moses comes down with the 10 commandments from Sinai, right? He's holding them, and what does he see?
Golden calf.
The golden calf.
They're worshiping a golden calf. He's horrified. And what does he do with the 10 commandments?
Break them.
And what does God say to Moses at that point? Anybody remember?
Take the pieces, I don't remember.
Okay, doesn't matter. What does God say? I'm going to wipe out the people of Israel.
And they're gonna have to wander for another 40 days or,
That was later, the punishment
Oh,
after
yeah.
the good. But God says, I'm going to wipe out the children of Israel. And from you will bring forth a new generation. You'll have more children, and we'll have a generation of Jews who follow my path, not who worship idolatry. This is what God says to Moses. So what does Moshe say? Who
If I can,
No, don't do it.
don't do what? Right, but how does
Wipe
he say
them.
it?
I can't, you can't, if you wipe them out, wipe me out too.
Very, very good. Let me get my papers that say it because I want to read it to you. And Moshe says, if they go, I go. And as a matter of fact, if you're going to wipe out the people of Israel, the Jewish people, erase me from your Torah. I want nothing, don't mention me in the Torah. Take my name out. I want nothing to do with this Torah if you are going to erase the Jewish nation that I took out of Egypt. Take me out of this picture. So the commentaries explain that when a tzaddik, a holy saint, a sage, and especially someone like Moshe, says something, words are never in vain. Whatever we say has an impact on the universe. So when Moshe says, God, take me out of this Torah, if you're going to destroy your people, even though later on God forgives them, all right, then they wander 40 years in the desert as a punishment, it remains. So in this Torah portion, Moshe's words come to fruition. You asked me to take your name out? In this whole Torah portion of Tetzavah, not one time is Moshe's name mentioned. Because when a person says something, especially a Moshe, it comes true. Take my name out of the Torah. God said, okay, in this Torah portion, I'm going to take your name out. You're not going to be mentioned. But it's that. Go ahead.
Is that why during Passover Seder, Moshe's not mentioned at all?
I forgot. Well, I get actually we had a class on that, and I gave an answer. Why wasn't Moshe's name mentioned in the Pesach Seder? I have to look it up.
Oh, well, I know why, because
Why?
God
Let's remind us. Remind us.
God took us out of the land, not Moses.
So the emphasis to be on God and not on Moshe. Yeah, we discussed it. Let me look. I'm going to look it up again. I can't remember, but yeah, it was a great insight. Why wasn't God's name mentioned? So that's
I mean, most,
why was Moshe's name not mentioned in the Haggadah?
Passover.
Well, isn't it mentioned at the beginning when he's in the river and?
No, I don't remember, but I recall something. Diane, I'm going to look it up for next class because it's very
okay,
something.
okay, look,
Now that you brought it up, I have to recall why.
Burning bush and yeah, it seems like his name is mentioned in the Haggadah.
I don't think it
I
is.
don't think so. I think that was the
Oh.
discussion that not once is Moshe's name mentioned in the Haggadah, but I'm going to look it up. Don't
Really?
let's table it unless anyone here has the answer till we look it up because I don't want to give him misinformation. But that's a very good. I'm glad you brought that up, Diane, because I do recall something. So
Okay.
now the plot thickens a little bit. Let me bring up one more thing. When Moshe goes back up, remember, he begs for forgiveness. God has him engrave a new set of tablets, and also God has him write the Torah. You know how a Torah scroll is written on parchment with an ink and a pen. And so what happens? Let's read what happens. When Moshe descended from Mount Sinai with the second set of tablets, he did not know that the skin of his face had become radiant. So the Medrash asks, what does it mean the skin of his face was radiant? There was a tremendous glow. We're talking now about the second time. And the rabbis write, Rab Shimon Bereb Lakish and Rabbi Yehuda, son of Nachman, when he was writing the Torah scroll, this is a very fascinating Medrash, some ink remained in the quill, and he passed it like this, he touched his forehead, the ink got on his forehead, and this is where these rays, like moisturizer that has a glow, you buy this moisturizer, it will make your skin a glow, the ink caused this tremendous radiance. So when they looked at him, it almost looked like his face was lit up by this light, like he had the lights installed in his face. It was almost scary.
Why would
This
the
is a
ink?
very cryptic Medrash. Because let me ask you a question. God dictated the Torah. God was the dictator. Moshe was the scribe, like a stenographer in court. God said, this is what you're going to write. And he starts writing. He has a quill. He has an ink pot up in the top of the mountain. God's presence is there. It's a very almost science fiction. And he's writing. Now, God provided the ink. God provided the quill. Why was there extra ink? God didn't know how much ink is needed. Everything by God is exactly precise. There's not even an extra letter, a quotation mark in the Torah scroll. There are no vowels. That's why when a Torah reader reads the Torah, they got to practice before. Because Anochi could be Anochi, it could be Enochi, it could be different vowels. And if you say the wrong pronunciation, you're not saying the right word. Sometimes the same word could have different meanings pronounced differently. So the reader, that's why there's someone who stands by the reader with a chumash and corrects him. Like my husband one week, it was a very hard Torah portion. There was a correction every second. And then someone, boom, 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 right, goes right through it. So why was there extra ink? It's God giving the ink to Moshe. Why was there extra ink? And the answer is because Moshe's name was not supposed to be erased from the Torah portion of Tetzavah. So God prepared the ink for right Moshe. Now Moshe says, my name is going to be erased. There's extra ink. There's extra ink. It accidentally or maybe on purpose smears on Moshe's forehead, and it creates this tremendous luminescence energy that Moshe's face shines. Now let's go back to the fact that his name is erased from the Torah portion. You might say, let me ask you better. Is this positive or negative? Let's go around. Everybody share your insight. Is this information positive or is it information negative? Are we showing Moshe in a bad light? You see, you're punished. You said erase my name. God said, okay, I'll show you. I'll call your bluff. I am going to take your name out. So is it showing Moshe in a negative light or in a positive light? What do you think? Who wants to go first?
Well, I think a little bit of both, but positive because you could see how God actually listens to him, which, you know, that's pretty powerful to have God listen. But although it was kind of said in a moment of emotion, not really well thought out moment. Yes, he wanted to not be there. If his people were going to be destroyed, he didn't want any part of it. So I'd say that's pretty powerful.
Okay, very good. So is it positive or negative, or are you saying it's both?
I'm saying it's both.
Okay, that's good. You can have two sides of the coin.
But more positive than negative, I think.
Okay,
The fact that he wanted to stick with his people, that's loyalty, and you know, even though he was loyal to God, he didn't want to forget the people. And I think that's obviously positive.
Well, I think it's positive because this is sort of maybe the beginning of making a bargain with God or speaking back to God. I think, you know, we're not a people who just learn by rote. We question everything. So
very good.
Hmm.
Okay. Margaret, do you want to add or say your opinion?
I don't think I have anything to add.
Okay, that's fine. So the Rebbe says something very, very powerful on this. Let's first, for a second, take a step back and think of a name, what a name is. And before we say that, I want to add, you know that in all the 5 books of the Torah, the 5 books of Moses, right? We call it the 5 books of Moses. There is not one Torah portion named Moses. Why? There's a Torah portion named Jethro. There's a Torah portion named Sarah, the life of Sarah. There's a Torah portion named Balak, who wasn't even a Jewish person. He was the king who wanted to curse the Jewish people, hired Bilam to curse the Jewish people. How come there's not one Torah portion called Moshe? For heaven's sake. No pun intended. Why not? Moshe doesn't deserve one Torah portion? Like
Well, he sort of has all the Torah portions.
very good. It's called.
I mean, if it's the book of Moses, it's
the 5,
his entire thing.
Okay, so you're saying that you can't even open a Torah book without thinking of Moshe. Moshe, Torah Tziva Lanu Moshe. Moshe taught us the Torah. Okay, so he's saying the whole book. Okay, any other insights? This Torah portion is named after Moshe. This is the Torah portion. When we said, God says to Moshe, Ata Tetzavah, you command. Tetzavah is Ata Tetzavah, you. Though God doesn't mention Moshe, this Torah portion is called Moshe. Why? The fact that Moshe is not mentioned draws even greater attention to Moshe than if you would have said Moshe. If God would have said in this Torah portion, Ata Moshe Tetzavah es b'nei Yisrael, you Moses, go tell the Jewish people how to make the clothing for the Kohen, how to do the oil. You wouldn't have even felt that this Torah portion is more significant because Moshe's name is mentioned just like all the other chapters in the Torah. Last Torah portion, Truma, where we discussed the building, no one said, oh yeah, Moshe's name is mentioned. How great is that? We take it for granted. He's the main character of the movie script. We only mention it now where it becomes a question is because his name is not mentioned. So in all this Torah portion, we actually are drawn to a different theme in the whole story. Why isn't Moshe's name mentioned here? So it actually emphasizes Moshe more than if you would have said Moshe.
Mhm.
Does everybody understand the point?
Yeah.
You have a table. All your children are there. Joey is missing. Where's Joey? Joey's seat is empty. What happened to Joey? What happened to Joey? Joey. The whole meal becomes about Joey. If Joey would have been there, no one would have even spoken to Joey, because Joey is one of the pack. When someone is missing from the scene, it becomes a topic of gossip and interest. What happened? Did you have a fight? What did you fight about? Tell me the truth. No, he just couldn't make it. No, I know there's something more. So the fact that Moshe is not mentioned is greater and emphasizes Moshe more than when he is mentioned. It's like, the Karens, you know what the Karens are. My girls always say she's a Karen. It became a nickname. I don't know if it's some kind of pop culture show or movie, one of these movies where the Karen is the woman that always points out, right?
Yes.
Jay, what's a Karen? Tell everybody what a Karen is.
Someone who always complains, and she's always the one that's the pain in the neck. She's always the one that interrupts, and she's demanding.
The Debbie Downer, the one that will tell you, you aren't allowed to park there. One of those types. So my kids always say, Ma, don't be a Karen, or she's a Karen. And I'm like, finally I asked them, what's a Karen? So now all the women with the name Karen don't want to be called Karen. Because their name already sets a tone for them being who they are. But if you don't tell anyone your name is Karen, no one will say, oh, she's a Karen. Or my cousin, her name she was named after her grandmother, Basia Yenta. Now, Yenta was a really Jewish name given all the time. But we call Yenta, like in the Fiddler on the Roof, Yenta was the matchmaker. Yenta is the gossip. Like I tell my girls, don't be a Yenta. Don't be a gossip. Stop Yentaving. Stop telling me all the news that's fit to print. So Yenta is a negative name. So my cousin was a little girl and we would tease her, you are a Yenta, you are a Yenta. Finally, her parents told her we took away the name. We took away the name. They really didn't, but we took away the name. But the minute she met someone and someone say, oh, you're Basi, oh, you're a Yenta, you understand? So the Torah, what I'm using this as analogy, that when a person sometimes doesn't have a name, the name is a limitation at times. Because why are you given a name? The Jewish name names your soul. That's why a girl, the minute she's born, the first Torah reading, the husband or the grandfather, usually the husband runs to shul for the first Torah reading and names his daughter. So she shouldn't be even an hour without a Jewish name, because you're naming the soul. And a boy by his bris. By your bris, you name the baby boy. So by the boy, you wait 8 days, and the girl right away, because the girl's soul comes from a higher source. So immediately you want to give the Jewish name. So, but why do you have a name? Because other people need to identify you. I know who I am. Who are you? I know. What do you mean? I am who I am. But I meet Diane. I'm like, how are you? What's your name? And people get insulted if you forget their name. So a name is really for others to identify you. But it's a limitation, because the minute you put someone in a box, you're a Karen, you're a Yenta, oh, you're from that family, oh, them, oh, I know, I remember you, Zaydin the Shtetl. He was a he was a kaptzen. You know what a ganef is? A thief. A kaptzen means a miser. So by Moshe not being called by his name, it shows that now we're looking, what is Moshe truly? Moshe doesn't need a name. The minute God says you, everyone knows who you is. Because Moshe, by saying to God, take me out of the Torah, I will not remain if my people are not, if my people don't remain. I am one with my people. It defines the greatness, the leadership, and the power, and the humility of a Moshe, who Moshe is. You don't need it. He's one with God. He's one with his people. He's not a separate entity. So the taking and not calling him by name makes us look at Moshe in a whole different light. What is true leadership, Moshe? Take me, don't mention me. I don't want to be mentioned. Don't highlight me, don't mention me, don't write my name, because I am them and them are I. I am not myself. I am not an independent person. You can't take my children and leave me to regroup. You take my children, you take me. I am my children, and my children are I. There's no separation. So this defines for us, as the Rebbe says, one of the greatest highlights of who Moshe was. In no way is it negative, it's all positive. By God taking out his name, God is rubber stamping and showing that Moshe is truly a Moshe. He's not Moshe because he's Moshe. I'm a leader. Moshe, Torah Tziva Lanu. Moshe. Moshe is you. You, one with me and one with my people. Which shows what true leadership is. A true leader, humility. People think a great leader can't be you humble. Look at Napoleon. Look at Caesar. True leader is a Moshe. I don't exist on my own. I am you and you are me. You are my people and I am you. We are one. And that's what they say about Abraham Lincoln, that he had tremendous humility. He had 3 opponents who opposed him in the Republican Party. And when he won, he put those 3 people on his board, a cabinet, right? Cabinet, yeah. Why? Because he became the president, but his humility, even his opponents, he put on this cabinet, in his cabinet. Because a true leader realizes, I'm not the one. I'm representing the people, but I'm here for the people. The minute a leader forgets that, you're a Napoleon, you're a Putin, you're a Stalin, you're a Nazi, a Hitler, Yamach Shemai. But Moshe teaches us the concept of true humility. The greater you are, by the way, the more humble you are. People can't understand that. Why? Because the greater you are, the more you realize how you're really not so great, because nothing is greater than God. The closer you get to God, the more humble you realize, why, I'm really nothing in this world. That's why Moshe is called Anav Mikol Adam, because his humility allowed his greatness. Humility is the key. And I want to share one more very beautiful insight that I love to share. Look at the whole book of Genesis, how the brothers, constant friction between the brothers. Cain kills Abel. Cain kills Hevel. Then you have Yishmael and Yitzchak. Yitzchak becomes the next patriarch. Yishmael, idolatry, immoral, wants to influence his half-brother Yitzchak. Tension. Then you go, the children of Yitzchak and Rivka, Jacob and Esau. Jacob takes the birthright. Esau wants to kill him. I want the birthright. Esau is immoral. He's a hunter. He's a killer. Fast forward, he comes with 400 men. He wants to again kill Jacob. There's a miracle. They make peace, but they don't go back to living together till Abraham's funeral. You don't see them together. Now you're going forward to the 12 tribes. They sell Joseph, their brother, into slavery, into Egyptian slavery. They're jealous of him. He has dreams. He's a fantasizer. He's too open-minded. He wants to bring the world closer to God. We want to be shepherds. There's a whole break in the philosophy of life, how to serve God. Is God inside? Is God outside? And then, of course, they reconcile. And now we have 2 more famous brothers, Aaron, the oldest, Moshe, the younger. God says to Moshe, come, you're going to take my people out of Egypt. What does Moshe say? I have a terrible speech impediment. I have an older brother. He's an orator. God says, very good. You're going to take the Jewish people. He can speak on your behalf and you'll guide him. You ever hear Aaron complain? You ever see Aaron say to Moshe, listen, big shot, God chose you, you go yourself. He goes everywhere with Moshe. There's total humility. And that's why it's not about me, Aaron says, even though I'm the older, it's what God wants. And so this totally friendship, camaraderie, there isn't an ounce of jealousy in Aaron. And now in this Torah portion, Moshe, God says to Moshe, go make the clothing for the high priest. Who's the high priest?
Aaron.
Aaron. Moshe could have said, what? I did all the work. He gets all the glory. I swept the people out, and I don't even get to go into the holies of holies. I'm like a regular guy. No, he makes the most beautiful, he has the people make the most beautiful clothes, as God said, the 8 garments of the high priest. He anoints his brother. He embraces his brother's leadership as the high priest. Not one moment of jealousy, antagonism, or why am I not going to be the high priest? I'm the interior designer and I don't even get to go in and burn the incense, a light of a menorah. Again, why am I pointing this out? The humility of Moshe, the humility of Aaron, humble, that this is what God wants. It's not about what I think. I'm the older, he's the younger, I'm the older. No. It comes to fruition what all the other brothers had to be, we see now in Moses and Aaron. The unification of the family. And this all comes from being a true leader and being humble. Realizing I'm just a conduit for God's mission in this earth. I have to just be open to what I'm meant to do, not what you're meant to do. Because jealousy is a very, very powerful force. We all have less. I was feeling jealous about something last week, and I was feeling so bad, that even doubly bad, because I felt jealous. I couldn't get out of my system. And I was trying to look up online how not to feel jealous, actually, but I got too busy. So I have to go back to that because I know it's going to reemerge. But don't worry, not violent jealousy, just, jealous. Not something where I'm going to take drastic action.
Want to be a blonde? I know someone.
And that's why, by the way, Aaron, what is he known for? Oyev shalom v'roidev shalom. Aaron created peace and pursued peace. There was 2 friends fighting. He would go over to one friend and say, Joe, listen, I just met Mike. He's so upset that he's on bad terms with you. He can't sleep at night. Go speak to him. I'm telling you, he's forgiven you. And he would go to Michael. Mike, I just met Joe. He's having such angst about the break in the friendship. Go to him. I'm telling you, he'll forgive you. Go. And he would create peace between people. He was known to pursue peace, and he loved peace. So between Moshe's humility and Aaron realizing that the foundation of the universe is peace and love, they were able to create the 2 kingdoms of the Jewish people. Moshe, the king, Aaron, the priesthood. The 2 brothers. The 2 brothers. So it's an unbelievable partnership. So Moshe's name is omitted from this Torah portion, but this Torah portion is really called Moshe. Because when you read it, you say, no, this Torah portion is Moshe, because it highlights the power of Moshe. You don't even have to say his name. You don't even need to have him on the cover of any magazine. You know exactly who we're talking about. He is one with God. He's one with his people. You don't even need to say his name. Saying his name almost limits, as we mentioned, who he truly is. It's only an external, his name. It's only an external. So I want to share a story. I think I shared it. Tell me if I did, then I won't tell the whole story. That it is the Cantonists. Did I ever tell you the story of the Cantonist synagogue? So if you recall, the Cantonists were the 1827 to 1856 under Tsar Nicholas, may his name be erased. 70,000 Jewish children were abducted to be put into the Tsar's army. But his intention was Jewish children. Not his intention wasn't only that he needed soldiers. His intention was to destroy the Jewish people. If I take 70,000 or more Jewish children and I baptize them and I indoctrinate them as Russian atheists, the Jewish people would be wiped out. There's no continuity. And there's so many miraculous stories of the boys, the Cantonists, the torture they went through, and how they kept their faith. The hundreds of stories about the Cantonists you can read in that. I read so many beautiful stories of the self-sacrifice of the Jewish boys, but you have to say many of them did give in, and many of them were left Judaism, because how could you under that terrible pressure, being tortured, beaten every day till you baptized and followed the way of the Tsar? So what happened after them? 25 years later, these young boys, taken as kids, indoctrinated to be soldiers and indoctrinated to be atheists, come back to life. And they had their own shul, their own shuls, their own synagogues, because after 25 years of being in this misery, in this prison, they didn't fit in back into the Jewish community. It's very hard. Person 25 years later was not allowed to wear a yarmulke, tzitzis, pray to God, eat kosher, tortured every day. How do I fit back in? I want to be Jewish again, but I don't fit back in. It's a very tragic. People don't even know about this tragedy in our history. Momentous. So they had what they called the Kantonist shul. And Simchas Torah people, Hasidim and Jews from other shuls would come watch them dance Simchat Torah. Because Simchat Torah by the Cantonist shul was something otherworldly. They would dance with the Torah, with tremendous joy, unusual joy. And then they would do by the seventh hakafa, the last hakafa means circle, by the last circle, every one of them would take off their shirts. And they were built because, remember, they're former warriors, soldiers, bodybuilders, because this was their life. Strong men. Not like now we give the Torah to one of the guys, and after one circle, he's ready to faint, and he needs 15 pieces of gefilte fish to get back his energy from dancing with the Torah. They would dance. And they would take off their shirts, they would grab the Torah, and they would hold the Torah to their skin. And they would dance to the end of the seventh Hakadah, which could last hours. And there were those Jews that made fun. Who takes off your shirt to dance with the Torah? It's disrespectful. But there was one great Hasidic rabbi, he says, I'll say in Yiddish, then I'll say in English, Mir tanzen mit der Torah, und sie seinen the Sefer Torah. He explained to the people who were the mockers, he said, we dance with the Torah in our shul, but they are the Torah. They are the Torah. Because what they felt was something you can't describe, an infinite feeling, only because what they suffered and went through. Them holding the Torah on their bare skin was a demonstration. This is not the Torah and I'm a separate person. I am the Torah. I am one with Torah. They achieved a level of what we call iskashrus, connection to the oneness of God that no one else could achieve because of what they went through. And this is Moshe. He's not Moshe. He is one with God and the Jewish people. He doesn't even have a name. He is one with them, and they are one with him. It's inseparable. He's part of their inner core, their inner skin. And this is how we also have to view ourselves, because there's a song called Eighth Day. It happens to be my nephew, a very famous Jewish band, modern pop band. He has a song, and it's called We All Have a Little Bit of Moses in Us. The Torah tells us that the power of Moshe is that each and every one of us has a piece of Moses within us. It's not like he was our leader, he took us out, he gave us the Torah, bunch, and that's the end of the story. Moshe is us and we are Moshe. Every one of us could be a Moses. And every one of us is a Moses, because we all have Moses within us. How? Because look what he did for us. We are here because of Moshe. And when someone says to you, I am you, you say to them, and you are me. Ani l'daidi v'daidi li. That's what it is. That's what it is.
Mm.
So this is the story about names, about Moshe, and how we have to view ourselves. How we have to view ourselves as Jews, as women, as, Torah, and our mission and purpose in life, and always on the trajectory of happiness, with happiness.
Mhm.